You're listening to Africa Business Radio, where you get up-to-date insights on the Africa business landscape. Log on to www.africabusinessradio.com. Your favorite shows are available on podcasts. Download them on our website and mobile app. Africa Business Radio, towards a profitable Africa.
Africa is rising, they say, but Africa must rise with its people. There is no Africa without its people. How then do we harness Africa's wealthy people? Through social change and development. Social Conscience with NASA commits to Aspiration 6 of the Africa Agenda 2063 and the Global Development Goals. We advocate social change and development that will inspire the transformation that keeps Africa rising. Join us every week at 6:30 p.m. GMT +1.
Hello and welcome to the second episode of Social Conscience with NASA for the year 2021. We are broadcasting live from the Africa Business Radio right here in Lagos, Nigeria. And I am, as always, your host with the most, NASA. So, we're still in COVID times, and there's a video that's been making the rounds on social media where a certain gentleman was sharing the details of the passing of his very good friend, who happens to be reportedly one of Nigeria's ultra high net worth individuals and presumably had access to anything money can buy. Unfortunately, this gentleman's money was unable to buy him the bed space that he desperately needed in the hospital to survive the coronavirus. The narrator of the story was essentially highlighting that if his friend, who had access to money and all the resources he could think of, couldn't get a bed space and be saved, what then is the plight of the average Nigerian? And this, for me, struck a chord because, again, you'd expect that someone who's got that kind of access should actually be able to get access to the best healthcare or even support or the kind of help they needed, but his money couldn't get him that. So what's the plight for someone like me and yourself on the streets that don't even have access to these kind of funds? And that's the situation in Nigeria. For me, this question is not just for coronavirus, but for the Nigerian populace as a whole. Given the increasing gaps in social development and deplorable economic situation and the state of security, there are real causes for concern. And, you want to understand, how do we then forge ahead? What's the way forward in 2021? It can't all be doom and gloom. And for me, it's critical to actually plan and have a sense of direction and understand where the opportunities and threats are, as it were. So the topic for discussion today is the socio-economic outlook for Nigeria in 2021. I believe that a conversation like this is important to sort of have an idea and plan strategically, if you like, despite the challenges we're faced with globally and locally. Joining me shortly in conversation is a gentleman who is very knowledgeable in these matters and is willing to share his views on the topic. But before I introduce my guest, please stay tuned and we'll go on a quick break.
Africa is rising, they say, but Africa must rise with its people. There is no Africa without its people. How then do we harness Africa's wealthy people? Through social change and development. Social Conscience with NASA commits to Aspiration 6 of the Africa Agenda 2063 and the Global Development Goals. We advocate social change and development that will inspire the transformation that keeps Africa rising. Join us every week at 6:30 p.m. GMT +1.
Welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, it's Social Conscience with NASA on Africa Business Radio, and the topic is Nigeria's socio-economic outlook for 2021. So I was looking at the budget analysis of Nigeria's proposed budget, and it was interesting to see that it's been tagged the budget of recovery and resilience, which is premised on the drastic effects of COVID-19. Certain assumptions were made on the price of the oil per barrel, etc., oil production. But that wasn't the issue for me. What was interesting to see was the sectoral allocation of the proposed budget, and which to me didn't seem to support the expectations to prioritize the key areas such as health, education, technology. And to shed more light on the topic that we're discussing today, which is around the socio-economic outlook for Nigeria in 2021, let me introduce to you my distinguished guest, Tayo Fagbule, who is the editor of BusinessDay. Before Tayo resumed as editor of BusinessDay in 2021, precisely January the 4th, I believe, Tayo worked as a researcher at Danne Institute for Research, where he oversaw projects, transformation of Lagos, protests in Nigeria, connectivity and productivity in Lagos. He was the deputy editor and chairman, Editorial Board at BusinessDay, where he was responsible for researching and writing about the socio-economic environment of business in Nigeria, as well as leading content development strategies and shaping the opinion of the Nigeria's leading business newspaper. He has over a decade of experience working in the media industry. He was Nigeria's correspondent for the Africa Report and Africa Confidential for 2 years, where he wrote regularly on business, economic and politics in Nigeria and West Africa. During this period, he was a member of the Editorial Board of financial derivatives company, Nigeria's leading investment research firm. Prior to his career in journalism, he was the MBA director at Lagos Business School, a role he combined with teaching anthropology and analysis of business problems on the full-time MBA program. He is a graduate of economics from the University of Lagos with an MBA from Lagos Business School, Pan Atlantic University. To my listeners, please feel free to weigh in by sending in your questions or comments to Africa Biz Radio, that's Africa BIZ Radio, one word, on Twitter with the hashtag SCWN. Welcome, Tayo, and thank you for accepting to share your knowledge and views. Very interesting profile. Anthropology, how does that even come up?
Well, at the end of the day, really, thanks a lot, Chinasa. Thanks a lot for having me. At the end of the day, the LBs is special for one thing. The emphasis on the human person, and that's why the need for anthropology, because you could get away with just teaching economics, but you could also you forget that you're teaching people economics, and how we behave. The economists, I study economics, okay, but no problem. Apologies to all economists, but we tend to think we have the model for human behavior, but it's just a slice of that reality. Right. Anthropology gives you more robust idea of human behavior. So we believe that, okay, because you're training managers, we're going to deal with people. Yeah. Managing people, that's a great asset. So it's good to have a more robust idea of what the human person is and how they decide and what drives them. Okay. Yeah, because sometimes it's not just the naira and kobo that moves us. It's not.
Absolutely. Very interesting. Speaking of human behavior and the Nigerian human behavior, looking at COVID and what's going on, the effects on the economy, society, what are your views? So it's a very broad question, but in light of what we're talking about, and for me, the idea is to speak to how this affects people, the human beings at the end of the day, because it's all about us eventually.
Yeah, exactly.
No matter, so
if there's anything I'm saying of late today, is that human beings are creatures of habit. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there were things we're doing before February 27, 2020 that we're not doing today. So
yes,
exactly. So we have to really
wearing masks. I
never thought really. It was just an Asian thing, a Japanese thing, and here we are, and we're learning that behavior. We're learning to stay away from loved ones. Right. You can hug and all of that. And so we'll be surprised what we can get away with because we have to learn new things. Okay, so because man is the only animal, the human being is the only animal that learns. Right. Really by repeatedly doing things. Okay. It has to be taught.
Really, not dogs.
Yeah, but
that's not good.
No, I mean but really learns in terms of. There's some things a dog knows from birth. Okay. But as a baby, I don't know those things. Okay, so that's one of the things also comes up in anthropology. So, for instance, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to. But everyone, a baby monkey knows how instinctively to avoid a snake. But the baby
wants to probably go and drag the snake.
Yeah, exactly. So. You have to teach the baby, so no, that's bad. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to say. So I think that's what COVID has really shown. Okay, this thing of us learning new things because it's going to have a lasting effect. Okay, people say there's a report, recent report, McKinsey, I think, if I recall. Okay, and got me thinking that we normally celebrate crossover, right?
Yes.
Into the new year.
Yes.
So there's something that
you probably won't make heaven.
Yeah. So what they're saying is that what COVID did was cross us over into 2030. I'm probably not McKinsey, but it was someone else. What we did was COVID was that we crossed over to 2030, and what were they saying? Very quickly.
So I get what you're saying. So like the year before before Corona broke out, it used to be future of work, future of this, and it seems so far away. Yeah. So those fringe technologies like telemedicine that people say, in 2020 you'll be speaking to your doctor on miles away, and he can really that. But we did that last year. Absolutely.
So you can sort of say Corona just brought 2030 closer.
Very close.
So we're in 2030 actually.
Absolutely.
So all those technologies, and we're having to learn that, and really having to learn fast. Okay, in terms of the skills that we have to learn, digitization, what they call dematerialization. Also, so classes. Who could have thought it was a big deal to have conference call online?
Yeah.
You needed serious bandwidth and all of that. Only the big institutions could do it. But now we're having video calls on our phones.
Yep.
So and really, so we a lot of things happen, and we see we've adapted. So that's one thing. Of course, the terrible things also have happened. Millions have lost their lives. More millions have lost their loved ones. Several more millions have lost their source of sustenance.
That's true.
But we're human, and so that's also part of the thing. Also that we learn and we move.
That's so speaking to how COVID has obviously shaped the way that we interact, the way that we live, the way that we do things, and in light of the effects on the economy, right? So inflation gone up. All those economic indicators just don't look good at all.
Yeah.
And this is 2021. It's second wave. Everybody sort of assumed that 2020 was the should I say harbinger or whatever of COVID, and it was like once the end of 2020, we can't wait for 2020 to end. And I'm like, guys, it has nothing to do with the year, right? And we're seeing it now. Second wave is even worse. So what should we expect to see as people, as society? What should we, how do we position, how do we plan for the year ahead in Nigeria, given the current states of the economy in terms of those indicators, high inflation, etc.?
You're right. It's just a little story. In Business Day, what we also noticed in terms of just doing a review, a look back at 2020, and from the reader's perspective, so what were the stories that our readers flocked to? And we found that too. People just wanted to survive.
Yeah.
It was I think it was the first thing, and primordial, really, just staying alive. That was number one. They couldn't. maybe, and then the next thing was, okay, fine, what was going to happen in terms of what was government's response
Yes.
to the pandemic? What were they going to do in terms of the economy, the recession,
Right.
and of course flight? Were they going to open the airspace? Were they going to close it? What was Lagos State, which was the epicenter, still is of the pandemic? What was going to happen? This was what top of mind of people.
Yeah.
But early this year, I think a lot of people are saying, you know what, I survived. Okay, now and then health obviously too was top of mind. But I think now people, okay, fine, I survived it. And you know, the initial thing was just that uncertainty. What is this thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think people sort of now
Not understanding.
Yes. So I think there's a better understanding of it.
Is there really a better understanding?
Well, better than
it was the first time where we just couldn't understand this thing that was keeping everybody at home. Yeah.
So there's some kind of a little more understanding of it. So
and you mentioned something, there's COVID fatigue, which I find interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So you know, just people as I said, we are creatures of habit.
Yes.
So this was just not a large part of our lives. It was just, you know, we catch a cold and nothing happens. But this one, the world caught a cold.
Right.
Okay, and then it's like, you know,
stand still.
So that's part of the fatigue. You
Right.
just want to move on with your normal life. But what we're also waking up to is that, well, it might not be as normal as it used to be. So there's more of that interest now, as I said, in where do I invest, opportunities, and how do I really prepare myself. So that's more of the interest now in terms of readers. Just basically, people are also tired of the bad news and just want opportunities. Really.
Well, are the opportunities there? You know, so if the infrastructure issues we have are still there, if not worsened, you know, the poverty gap is widening.
Exactly.
So, you know, when I'm not saying there are no opportunities, but really and truly, what are these opportunities? So on the other side, I see the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement as sort of some sort of messiah or some savior.
Yeah.
But how real is that as a point of opportunity? Because that also depends on certain things like the readiness of the country and the political landscape and the policies, etc., to sort of enable it.
Yeah. Okay, so I think what we can do is learn from the past. And so when was the last time we had such a similar pandemic? You know, this world, this sort of brought the world to a stop. Then the closest we have is over 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, unfortunately called Spanish flu. But just basically that was the pandemic then, and Nigeria too was affected. So if you read that story, which is very interesting, and I wrote about it, and reading about it was for me the most fascinating part of just how we responded. So then
how did we respond?
So we were under British rule then, and the ships came into the port. And there was one particular so from Sierra Leone, they had already said, you know what, guys, watch out. There's some funny thing happening here. People catching this thing and they're dying. So I think it's better to quarantine. So that's what the ships, you know, just keep them away for 40 days. Yeah. So you have to quarantine these ships to avoid this thing spreading. So one ship became the super spreader. They didn't watch it. They let it slip through the port. And then people just started dying, and then people were scared, so they didn't talk about it. And they ran away to their village, and so quickly just spreading it. But they also had this special isolation center as well, and tried to go into people's houses and what have you. But there was something else happening at that time, which I found from the economics point of view was that the Second World War was going on. Okay, and that's why it actually spread all over the world. It was just the soldiers just carrying it, you know, by train,
different locations.
Different locations. So, but there's a great demand for a certain commodity that Nigeria had, palm oil, which was used for the munitions. Okay, so it was part of the bombs and all that, so that we're making, and the palm oil was needed for it, and so there was a huge demand for palm oil. So Nigeria made, in from between I think this was not the 40s. So this was First World War. But within a year, you had this huge surge in exports of palm oil
during this period.
So there was a lot of, and of course, soon after the war ended, the demand dropped. But what was happening during that period also was that a lot of the rails that we have now were being constructed. So once the income from palm oil dropped,
Yeah.
the infrastructure that was being constructed was now what we now use for the cotton from the north and the palm oil pyramids. So the infrastructure to carry all of that.
Right.
So infrastructure was being built. Now, was that deliberate? Did they foresee that? No. But what I'm just trying to say is that that's the opportunity. Okay, that we can learn from. Okay, fine. Okay, we're going through a bad time now, but if you invest in that infrastructure, say for the free trade zone to move goods from Lagos to out of Africa to other parts of Africa, that would be an opportunity. Could we fix our rails?
Right.
Okay, which they're doing. Okay, it's not so obvious,
but they're doing it.
Okay, now how does that now affect on a larger scale the people? Then of course it means. And I'm sure we will come to that. But really, to answer your question, I think is to just let's look at the past and then learn from the past. I think it's just building that infrastructure that connects. Then they were building real infrastructure that connected Nigeria. I think now we're probably just looking at real infrastructure that connects not just Nigeria but also Africa.
Okay, so if we're learning from the past and looking at what we currently have, so what's that opportunity for Nigeria? What can we say? So people say we have our biggest assets are our people, but now that we're social distancing, you know, I'm not sure how do we harness that opportunity of people? You know,
So clearly, what I see, and people probably hold different view is. Eventually, I mean, hopefully also, it will come to pass. When, we don't know, okay? The joke is that journalists are the ones who have an end date for the vaccine. We all turn scientists also. So I'm not going to go into that, but it will eventually end. And in the meantime, while we wait, because we're social distancing, I think a lot of work will probably be, and yes, people will also say, no, but it's just for those who can afford it, to do a lot of self-development, really. Okay. If you ask me, just preparing. So there's this report.
But your self-development in what areas? What am I developing for?
Exactly. So that's what I'm trying to connect the dots now. So top of mind, there's this report by the WEF, the World Economic Forum, on about jobs in the future, skills for the future.
Yes, a lot of soft skills.
Yes, a lot of soft skills, and so that is necessary. Okay, a lot of more of less brawn, more brain. Okay, so while you have on the streets, I see people doing a couple of companies still doing some kind of activation with their products within the protocol of distancing. Okay, just basically just getting, but not as the skill that we used to. But a lot of that is moving online.
Right.
Okay, so digital marketing skills. That's big now. Okay, just basically how to sell online.
Because everything is happening online.
Yeah, social selling, really. So that's a skill that's really going to be in demand going forward. Digitization, COVID has sort of accelerated that. A lot of people have gone online, so a lot of the consumption and a lot of the selling is going to be online. So those who can sell online will probably be, so that's the skill that we needed. Logistics to do the end-to-end. Yeah. Okay. That's but also the light manufacturing. So what has COVID done also is probably said, you know what, there's some things that we were very reliant on importing, and this sort of, you know, I'm going to change my policy. I'm going to try and source more of that locally. So probably light manufacturing would be given a much more serious.
So you say the thing with manufacturing for me is we don't have, where's the infrastructure, power, all those things.
Exactly. So that's why I'm looking into. If you look at the past, what we did, so you had that infrastructure being built, railway connecting Nigeria. Right. So this is an assumption, okay, now. And it doesn't have to be the federal level. So you see it states like a kitty.
Okay, yes.
Very deliberate about that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so deliberate in also in the sense that, you know what, even the biggest sector right now is services. So IT, technology. COVID means some of our coders, bright brains, can't leave the country. But guess what? Give them power, give them internet connection, and they probably can, right there in Nigeria, get jobs from abroad.
That's true.
Do that and pay the tax
and
here.
And get paid in foreign currency.
Exactly. No, paid in foreign currency.
That makes sense.
A lot. So, and that's why I was saying a lot of self-development. So basically, this is probably the time for me, you know, start taking coding skills. Is it very easy to learn coding on my phone, because most of us have phones but don't have laptops? Okay, fine. But I see a lot of people, and you can do that remotely. You don't have to be in Lagos. So long as there's power and there's internet connection and you have those skills, you can start, and Ekiti is taking that seriously.
That's it, yes.
Okay, and I'm sure there are other states also
that
looking
will
at
follow
that.
suit.
So that's the services side, and then light manufacturing, as I said, basically trying to just source locally and provide for these things that you were basically depending on for imports, and then which inflation on one hand, and also the lack of dollars is also pushing you to find it locally, even if maybe you have to, as a company, go into it yourself, or you find people who are your partners who can provide it.
Wow, interesting. So, I was looking at that proposed budget analysis, and the allocation, sectoral allocation was quite interesting to me. And you'd imagine or think that what we've experienced with COVID, that you sort of just automatically see that, the sectors that we think are worst hit or are critical, which is, for me, education, health, technology have the highest share. And it's not the case.
Not.
What's the rationale behind this?
I wish I was in the room where they decided or could get into the heads of those who decided. But the argument they've put forward is that, one, for health, that okay, fine, all the interventions for COVID is already a lot of money spent. But that's for an emergency. Yeah,
and that didn't also work out as expected, like the outcome of COVID and what we saw and all the palliatives.
Exactly. So, but the infrastructure. So the argument now is that, build the infrastructure for the vaccines when they eventually come. Okay. When they eventually come. So primary health centers, chilling, cold chains. Okay. To just keep the vaccines
within the right temperature
level. So that's where the money should be spent now. Okay. And build that
within the health sector.
Within the health sector. So so we're not saying that, and it's sad.
It is.
It is.
And worrisome.
Because it's really. I wonder if, as I said, COVID accelerated some things. As it also for the rethink of how what the priorities. I don't see that yet.
Nobody sees.
I don't see that yet. So,
so what's it going to take?
What's it going to take?
Because to be honest with you, right, like when COVID happened, I said, okay, so maybe this is the hard reset that we needed.
Exactly.
Because this was not a respecter of any class of people. Yeah. And when all the different countries were shutting their borders, like, you have to work with the resources, and maybe it would force people to say, we need to fix our home and make sure it's... we can actually get the kind of care we need. And I thought, but it's just interesting. So yes, what will it take?
So, back to what I said at the beginning. So the creatures of habits.
Yeah.
So maybe this one habit is still we're not ready to kick yet. But that's.
And what's this habit? Selfishness, or just not think? Because again.
Yeah, just not thinking beyond stage one. Okay.
What is stage one?
Stage one is, okay, fine, yes, we have a health budget, we have to put some money there, but
not thinking about it critically, right?
Critically, right. There's a consequence of that. If I put this amount, how do this avoid or prevent something similar? Because really, the only reason we're probably also not thinking beyond stage one was, okay, and it'll be unfortunate, really.
Yeah.
This is me thinking, okay, we're not seeing the same death rates that we saw in Europe or America.
I know, right?
But
because it's not being reported.
Yeah, but then again, we're already seeing Africa already has. I was reading the other day, we already have death rates that are above that of the West.
Really?
With the second wave.
You know what? And I still think there's underreporting.
Exactly.
Like people don't even know why they're dying or why their loved ones have died.
Exactly.
And they would always sort of chalk it to malaria or something else.
Yeah, exactly. Which is part of the broken health system that we have already, because people a lot of people self-medicate.
Yes.
A lot of people self-medicate.
That's a habit thing too, right?
Yeah, so
we've been forced to be our own government, right?
Exactly. So DIY. So I see a lot more, which is why I see a lot more DIY in terms of coping with COVID.
Right.
Really, I don't see the readiness or the ability on the part of those who should be to take that decision. And we're already seeing in the budgets. Yeah. So a lot of DIY. So that's why I was talking about self-development.
Right.
Okay, and knowing where, but on the scale of the education itself too, it's a huge demand.
It is.
So meeting that need. So if people are we're used to doing things for ourselves, DIY.
Yeah.
So just even the industry for teaching you how to do things on your own to DIY is an industry. It's an opportunity.
That's true.
So that's what I was going to say. That really just providing that
as a service.
As a service. How to code, how to digital market, how to So that itself is a huge industry, just DIY industry itself.
Wow, interesting. Okay. Some more questions on the economy, right? So we talk about the GDP as, a measure of how well our country is doing, and Nigeria is still cited as one of the largest economies in sub-Saharan Africa based on GDP.
Yeah.
The likes of South Africa, Kenya, Ghana. Now I've been to Ghana, I've been to South Africa, and I would say the vast majority pretty much are not like the vast majority of Nigerians. And here we are boasting of being the largest economy. So what I'm saying is, in real terms, or to me, I'm not seeing that. But on the big picture, it's like, Nigeria is doing very well. So are we really the largest economy, or is just, and is GDP a proper measure of how we're performing as a country? Someone said that, in fact, it's the living standard.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that.
Yeah.
So it's not a quantity thing, it's a quality thing.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
So if you focus on the quantity, Nigeria is big, and just sheer size. Sheer size, that's all. So it's remarkable. Immensely big, immensely, and it's a good thing. But we're not harnessing it. So, but so it's a quality thing, really. If you ask me, at the end of the day, does GDP capture all of that? No.
Shouldn't that change then? If we're realizing, is this part of habits? Like, so we've always used GDP. Let's continue.
Yeah. So the economists too will say, Exactly. So it's a big problem with GDP. Yes, there's a big debate among economists.
Okay. What's that debate now?
So that debate said, look, you're not capturing everything. You're not capturing, say, for instance, let's use our own GDP. Before it was rebased, Nollywood and telecoms was really not captured.
And those are huge,
and they're getting big. And so probably even our biggest, fastest growing. You could say telecoms is weathering the storm.
Absolutely.
And then of course it spawned other industries like ABR.
Honestly.
So and of course the equipment that goes to that, the music industry, the movie industry. Our story today in Business Day was how Nollywood came to the rescue of cinemas, even though because there were no films from Hollywood, so basically it was Nollywood that filled the gap, and so it did quite well. So to answer that question is that really GDP is about quality and standard of living.
Right.
Okay, the quality of education, the health. So I think maybe probably HDI, Human Development Index is probably a better measure. Yeah, because that's very important, really, because it's just if an oil will run, it's about the quality of the lives that people live.
Of course,
because there are smaller countries than Nigeria and have incredible quality standards of life.
Absolutely. I say look at Ghana, for instance, and you're like, wow, and we're supposed to be this huge economy.
So I don't. That's not the size deceive us. Basically, I think emphasis should be the quality.
Quality.
Yeah.
And so speaking of quality of life, so what would you say the government should prioritize in terms of developing society, social development, and the quality of life for people?
So it's the human person, really, and just focus on the human person, the human beings that make up that country or that area. And that means the basic things that we're seeing. And
Health,
really, health, education. I think those things are. That's just. Back when Africa Rising was the rage, and Goldman
we talked about that. Africa Rising. Africa is still rising.
and that buzzword, and Goldman Sachs did that report about the next 11. And you look at the bit about Nigeria, and he said, and it just boiled down to fix education and health, and really
everything else
would follow.
But it's funny, right? We keep forgetting power, though.
Yeah, obviously, and of course we need that. So that's
which should come first? Because I've had this conversation, and I was at this conference, and there's this Sierra Leonean gentleman. He's a professor. I can't remember his name. And he was talking about how, everybody, the SDGs, nothing talks about power, but it actually underpins everything that we're trying to do. Because if you don't have the power, then everything else you're trying to do is sort of still, So, but funny, we hardly ever talk about, we talk about health, we talk about education, but health sector needs power. Yeah. And maybe the reason it's not factored into the SDGs is because if you're looking at most developed countries, they have that in place, right? And we're the ones that don't have that gap.
It's interesting observation, really, and it's true, yes. And it's part of, so we'll talk about hard and soft infrastructure.
Yes.
So the human person, I think is important. Yes. Okay. Our health, our education.
Of course.
And then to give us education, we need these roads to get to school.
That's right.
You need the schools to have a class. You need the power to run to make sure there's lights stay on in school, or that the labs can work.
But let's even say we've moved away from, we're in the COVID world now, and everything is online, right? So maybe we don't need the roads to get to school. Maybe we just need the internet connectivity to stay at home and learn.
Fine, but if you need to get that laptop to the students, you still need the road.
Logistics of
delivering. So, so clearly you need the hard infrastructure that can support that soft infrastructure.
Right.
I mean, the roads that are going to be there for the primary health centers if you're going to get your shot of vaccines.
Yeah.
And babies are being born, and are you going to say because of how are you going to make sure that they get their immunization? Their postnatal care. Are we going to see a surge again in deaths of under 5 babies dying before their 5th birthday because of? So it's also being able to think beyond stage 1. Okay, fine. We need health and education, yes, but what do we need to deliver health and education?
Yes.
Okay, so the infrastructure, the support, so all of that, yes.
Okay, I wanted to touch on safety nets, and it came up obviously with COVID. It was obviously now apparent that there were no such plans or provisions, and as you'd think, like you'd expect that maybe in trying to plan ahead and not knowing when this will end or when another pandemic would break out, that there'll be some sort of robust plan or policies in place, but I don't think I see that. And I just like to, what do you think? Safety net, or is it not an African thing? Is it just more for the developed countries?
Obviously, we have a different way of coping.
Our coping mechanism. So is that why we probably don't?
No, we already found a way to cope, but that still doesn't take the fact away that we need safety nets. Because because sometimes that safety net you're spending out of your pocket. Yeah. Really. Yeah. Or out of your brother's pocket, or your sister's pocket, because that's your safety net. Right. Your siblings, okay, fine. My brother is in trouble. I need. My sister now says, you know what? I have to wire this money to him. Yeah. So and then that's to tide me through that period of trouble. So that works fine.
That's what exists.
That's what exists right now. But then, we have to get inventive. So this whole, on the bright side of the NIN, it's been terribly managed. The National Identification Number. Yes. But I think they're probably also thinking now beyond stage 1. So stage 1 was, if I can get you without your NIN, no phones, and everybody says, then they see the crowds that are crowding at the. Yeah. But this is the stage 2. This is another super spreader event. What are you doing? Aren't you guys thinking? And okay, you know what? Maybe you can use your. And then telcos come and say, we can actually do this thing for you. So you guys start doing it. So eventually, telcos are the ones now helping them to get the NINs and then connect it. Yeah. Now, so if you have an NIN,
identify each person.
Then practically everyone, adults in Nigeria. Yeah. I even know people who are registering NINs for their 5-year-olds.
Yeah, but we have to do that,
because their children, they have to do it. So, but that means it's tied to a phone or something.
Yeah.
So that is one source of actually saying, I know who you are, and you can actually start building
make provisions
for the. So what's in Brazil they call the Bolsa Familia. Okay. So it's like conditional cash transfers. Right. So the problem has always been in Nigeria. Okay, how do you do a conditional cash transfer if you don't know who you're going to pay to? with NIN and the BVN, you can actually, so if you say, okay, right, use BVN and but how many people have bank accounts? Okay, but there are more people with phones than bank accounts. Okay,
yes,
and they have NIN now.
Right.
So we can actually start a conditional cash transfer and say, you know what, if you meet these conditions, we will transfer X amount of money to you because we know you now. Yeah. Okay. And so you can already start this building a safety net.
Okay.
But it means it requires thinking beyond stage one.
Right.
That, okay, fine. We have an insecurity problem. We must know who's behind that phone number. But actually, you're trying to say, you know what? Now that we know who you are, we can actually start building cash transfers using NIN.
Okay. During the pandemic, they did. CBN tried to do something. They were sending money to people, but I even think that some people that didn't need the funds got it. So
it happened in the US too. So.
Oh, okay. So you're saying it's not that bad?
No. I'm just saying that.
But it's true. So you said he got money that he wasn't supposed to get.
Many people shouldn't hear that, but so these things happen. But the scale at which it can be done, really, it's nowhere near what was done. Because we have to also, this economy is hugely informal. Yeah. Hugely informal.
Absolutely.
And so this is another thing you also is NIN a way of trying to
bring everybody into that form. I think so.
To capture
as many people.
We need that data also for planning. Okay, fine. Really. So, but it requires, as I sound like a broken record already, but about thinking beyond stage one.
Stage one. No worry, I'll change the title of this topic to Beyond Stage One. Okay, great stuff. So the president recently issued an executive order to sort of like the consequences for not following the COVID precautions, etc. And to me, I'm like, well, it took a while. That's something that I thought should have happened like from day one last year, especially given the anyhowness of Nigerians. So what are your views on this executive order? What's driving it? Why? And how is this something that would actually be effective, given that there's so many things that...
Well, for all the people who make and sell face masks, it's a wonderful regulation.
I know, right?
So
business is booming.
Yeah, it's face masks are flying off the shelf.
Yeah.
So for them, I think, but I think better late than never. There's a copycats. Oh, okay, fine. I mean, nothing wrong with copying.
If you're copying the right thing, that
suits you. So probably, the same thing. Lockdown was copied also.
Did we copy lockdown?
So people would debate, and I probably will debate till for the next. All the data isn't out here until this thing is over. Yeah. So whether it was Sweden by not locking down that did better, or it was China by doing that world record breaking, or India world record breaking lockdown. But what some people soon realized also was that lockdown wasn't for everyone. Yeah, it helps stop this. The disease, this virus is one that if you move, it moves. So you stop people from moving, then it won't move.
They will move.
Fine, but if you tell me not to move and I'm going to die anyway,
then I just want to choose the way I want to die. Then
so context also helps when we adopt things.
Hence, I'd rather die of COVID than hunger.
So but anyway, to answer the question, I'll say it's good because I think it just shows the seriousness of this thing. It took us this long to copy, but the Asians were already doing this.
They were, and I never used to understand that, and I thought it was just a terrible way to live. And never in my life did I think that I'll be, wearing masks around.
And you see how they've been able to handle it better. So now, is it because of language? I'll be worried to just say, okay, because I don't speak Mandarin or Cantonese, but off the radio, we're not talking about this level of deaths and trouble with chaos with COVID, COVID chaos. So it's basically focused UK and the US and Europe, but the Asian countries, we're not hearing much about it because they've had a lot of experience.
So they have a process and a system
exactly.
in place.
So the mask wearing and all of that is what.
So
you
the behavior, the habits was already
exactly
formed,
learned.
Right?
Exactly. So I think it's better late than never, if you ask me. So yes, it could have been done earlier, but as I said, we're basically looking at what are other people doing. Okay, let's do it also.
Yeah.
So in this case, the President Biden soon after came in, issued that order, and
next thing Nigeria.
So maybe Nigeria's okay. Well,
let's also copy our big brother.
Okay. And nothing that means you want to be inspired to be like that.
That's
fine.
True. If it's the right thing and it works and it's
fine.
What you
so no problem. So even if you didn't come up with the idea,
it doesn't matter as long as you're doing what's right.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So then there was the recent change in service chiefs.
Yeah.
And the question is, what does that mean for stability and investor confidence? Just given that there's all these changes happening and the insecurity situation in the country. What should we expect to see?
What a week, huh? What a week.
I know,
so you have the change in the service chiefs and something that people have been demanding for a long time.
Right.
It took this long for it again. That slow response, waiting till things really get there.
Yeah.
They have to win trust. Let's just say plainly. There's a lot. They have to win trust. It's not just changing guards doesn't solve it. It's really
like
there's been a real
to NSWAT.
Exactly. So there's that lack of trust. So I don't envy them. I don't envy them. I think if you're going to be the same old, then obviously then we
want to see real changes.
Yes. Because it has to, so we had this debate the other day at work, and it was okay. Fine. What's the problem with Susanna? What's the problem with is the problem insecurity or the problem poverty?
I think poverty is what drives it, right?
Yeah. So eventually it was like, what, people, if you haven't created wealth, you haven't developed persons, human beings, to have them develop.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're breeding animals.
Exactly. Eventually they will eventually turn to banditry or terrorism or to gangs and what have you. And then so the farmers who are under threat because of the bandits and the terrorists prize their life into the food. So I'm staking my life to go to the farm.
Yes, so I'm going to factor that into the
pricing.
Yeah, because it's like risky business.
Exactly,
now.
And I imagine that's what also the people who are transporters also price into
it's
it.
So inflation. Wow, look at that connect.
So that was quite a revelation for us in
That's interesting, absolutely.
Yeah. So really, this is what we have to be looking at. So if you fix insecurity, fantastic.
Yeah.
But
the root
cause is that people are
hungry, people are poor,
exactly.
people are living
and so they're not being developed. There's not human development. So that is really, you have to go to that core.
So how do we tackle this problem?
So it's and again, learn from others. Okay, right. So if the Chinese lifted millions in a generation,
what did they do?
Give people right to their land, grow what you can. Okay, give the infrastructure to make it happen.
I think the infrastructure is the major missing piece.
Yes, and then of course educated, a lot of their own, but also just give people right, that freedom to to grow what they wanted, and then just encourage. I mean, it's still a dictatorship. I mean.
Rwanda. Let's use Rwanda as a case study, right? And
it's still there's still some autocratic.
But it's working, right? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right?
So personally, I am for human freedom. Let people decide.
I am for human freedom as well, but you must know kind of people.
So let's just be clear that you can't get away with anything or anyhow.
How do you make it clear?
Put laws.
There's got to be consequences.
Exactly. So I think that's it. Which is really, for me, the challenge here is that you can practically get away with murder.
Yeah, you can. That's what I'm saying.
So if it's made clear that you can't, that can happen.
How do you make it clear without being autocratic and being?
Let's just apply the law. Really.
Okay, well, enforceable.
Yes, just enforce it. So just be willing to enforce it, so next time I cannot come out of my car when there's an accident, I don't say, "Do you know who I am?"
Did you know who I am? Question.
Yes. So I've broken the law. It's not about because who I am is signaling, saying, you know what, I'm
above the law.
I can get away with this. No, so I've done something wrong. Let me face the consequences.
That's
Let me
true.
face the music. I think that's something we have to learn.
Interesting. Okay. So the youth protests. And this is just talking to what we're talking about. So talking about governance. But what's your view about this generation of the youth? I mean, when I say generation of youth, you say you're not a millennial.
No.
What's your view,
unfortunately,
on what happened, and what do you think that we should expect to see with what we saw in 2020 with that demography and all in terms of the agitations? Yeah.
So when it happened, I was stunned.
Why?
Stunned that they pulled it off. I'm proud.
Okay, thank
Impressed.
you. That's my group,
Yes.
my age,
Impressed.
my gang.
Because it's something that everyone could relate with. I mean, the pain, the frustration, and the organization was impressive, and I mean, it was just really.
Some people argue though that the organization, so the leaderless group thing,
so
maybe not ideal. After a while, it
exactly.
should have been short. Yeah.
So one thing that, as I was saying, the one article that made me understand it all was by a certain young man, Emmanuel Francis.
Okay.
His surname is quite a mouthful, so we're friends now. But so if he's listening, I apologize. But he writes for us now for BusinessDay regularly, and he just says, so it's a Quora question. It's a Quora, and so on. So what's happening in Nigeria, and why is it different? Why did it escalate so fast? Okay, and he just basically gives an explanation, and he just says, what is happening is not new. The brutality is daily. People are kicked out of their homes, evacuated from where they were living, and there's tensions everywhere. But just this time around, the people who are affected have access to the internet. Okay, the people who are being picked up are being profiled by these people are the people in the tech space and the creative space.
Right.
Okay, and they have voice and they have talent and they know how to use the internet to really drive. So the hashtags and all of that, and then that really got a lot of following, and then it went global. No problem. Okay, so two things I saw was about the use was that that organizing. Ability to organize, and also a new generation of talent was moving out of people who worked for their wealth, the creatives. I mean, people like the ABR, and and so there's a new generation of people like that. I'm doing my work, I'm doing my hustle, I'm creating my wealth. I do what I do want to do.
Basically,
basically. But then, of course, I can't buy protection.
Right.
So that, of course, I always fall under police brutality. So, but has the agitation always been there? Yes, it's always been there. And the interesting thing, so go back to history again.
Yes.
So this, and you see, and where I worked before I became editor, we're doing a report on that, on protests in Nigeria. But going back to the times of Herbert Macaulay, Herbert Macaulay actually led protests. Okay, and what were they agitating for? So, similar things.
Right.
Okay, so people educated and demanding from those in power and asking for, and so there's been so that we're drawing parallels of protests in the history of Nigeria.
Okay.
So it's nothing new if we really look at history, and then if we look at history, we'll now say, okay, fine, how do we avoid how it ended? Okay, if you listen to Fela Unknown Soldier, you'll have had the answer. Okay.
Well, what's that answer? So, I mean, if you
how it will have ended if because Nigeria has a habit also of using force.
Yes.
Okay, so either they buy the protests, which is why the whole option of having a leaderless was
so that it's not easy.
But then
sway.
when they can't buy that, then they use force. So we also have to So I think
of
important.
Another way.
There will always be protests, but I think it's just a good idea of grasp of a bit more savvy.
But how effective would protest? If there will always be protests, we've seen the outcome of this. So what's the better way to do it to make sure we get the actual outcomes? Because again, it's about results.
Yeah. So really, which is something we find. I mean, in preliminary research that we were doing was that the demands have always been for some kind of change. Okay,
Right.
but the only kind of change that eventually comes is that the people who protest some of that eventually get into political office.
And then,
But the socio-economic demands are never addressed.
why is that?
So probably because it's quicker to just give political positions than to sit down and fix economic.
So when they give them those positions, I'd imagine that someone who's in this process gets into political office. You're going to actually go there and drive the kind of change you want to see, no?
Maybe not, because then again, we don't have all the answers.
So is there an institutional problem more than... So if I get into office and there's a way that things are done, then I really...
So maybe
can't.
maybe we also have to spend more energy discussing the what to do rather than what's wrong.
Okay.
So maybe we all know what's wrong, but what to do.
We know it too well.
Yes, but I think it's what to do and how to sustain that.
I agree.
So I think I think
I don't even think it's so much what to do. I think we even know what to do, but it's how.
no, what to do, how to do it. Okay,
Effectively.
Yeah, all those things. I think a lot more energy has to be spent on that. So let me just give an example. Okay, as I was growing up,
Yeah.
a lot of my older people who influenced me,
Yeah.
and the discussion was always about how to make the country better. That was the discussion I grew up hearing.
Yeah.
But then there's a certain generation I grew up hearing that this country is bad.
That's all the complaints.
Yes.
Okay, what you're going to do about it.
So not what you're going to do about it, what can be done about it.
Okay.
So I think we have to have more conversation about what can be done about the
But
country.
don't you think that's happening? We're having conversations about I think I keep saying that we have amazing plans on paper. We have bright ideas. But the question is, who's going to build that?
Yeah, but I want to go beyond stage one. I've always heard that there are great ideas that never been executed. Why were they not executed? Why is it difficult to execute? What do you need to execute? Is it that we don't know how to execute? Do you see that you need a whole lot of people?
Yeah.
Who are those who have executed in governance? And why have they been successful? We need to study that.
That's what I'm saying. So I say, let's use Rwanda as a case study, no? Wouldn't that be the best?
Fantastic. We can learn from that, but I'm always wary personally about the thing about you have one powerful figure who's really there, and
you think it should be more decentralized?
I think so. Okay. I mean, and Rwanda is small, and they already have a different history.
Yes.
Okay, but when I was saying study about people, even here, the things that have been successfully executed. Why were they successful?
Example.
Wow. Okay. Fine. I mean, how come we're having ABL is online, right?
Yes.
Okay. Telecoms is a success story in Nigeria.
That's true.
It's a success story.
What was done differently?
What was done differently? Why did it work? Okay, so I think let's not. The LNG worked very well.
Yeah.
Why did it work? So things like that, study them more, and successful projects,
and take out the learning points, and then
just find how execution works. You can execute, and then really
fantastic. Tayo, I did not know time had gone so quickly, and I like that we actually made it conversational. So, and I think I found a lot more topics from the conversation we had. So we're going to obviously have you on the show next time. But it's been an amazing time having this conversation with you. But before we go, I'll just like you to just leave us with something. Like, what if you were to recommend something to the Nigerian government today in terms of moving closing the development gaps we have in society? What would that one thing be?
Education.
Everybody says still not power. Education.
It's like joint thinking about making everything so when Kennedy wanted to take America to the moon,
yes.
Okay, so he said we have to put a man on the moon, but did he think about the gigabytes that we need? All of that will go into building it. So
everything will fall.
Let's have one national project. This is what we're going to do as a country,
and everything else sort of follows.
Yeah, and then we put everything into it.
Makes a lot of sense.
So education for me will be it.
Fantastic.
Really. So do we need how to double the number of coders that we have in Nigeria, give them the power to code, learn how to code, and then they get jobs, and education.
Fantastic. It's been an amazing time with Tayo Fagbule on SCW, and today I've had an extremely exciting time discussing this issue, and I think there's a lot more that's been unearthed, so you guys watch out for more. So please tune in same time, same station next week as we bring another exciting conversation your way, and I am yours conscientiously.
Africa is rising, they say. But Africa must rise with its people. There is no Africa without its people. How then do we harness Africa's wealthy people? Through social change and development. Social Conscience with NASA commits to Aspiration 6 of the Africa Agenda 2063 and the Global Development Goals. We advocate social change and development that will inspire the transformation that keeps Africa rising. Join us every week at 6:30 p.m. GMT +1.
You're listening to Africa Business Radio, where you get up-to-date insights on the Africa business landscape. Log on to www.africabusinessradio.com. Your favorite shows are available on podcasts. Download them on our website and mobile app. Africa Business Radio, towards a profitable Africa.